that I hadn't heard the words Tory sleaze for 20 years or more, and suddenly even the Tory supporting newspapers are using that phrase. What's your assessment of what happened in the House of Commons in the last 2 days?
Well, I think, first of all, we've heard quite rightly the Conservatives got it wrong. The Conservatives got it wrong because they tried to change the rules retrospectively. They refused to do that when it was about one of their sex pests to try and get him out of Parliament, but they were willing to do it when it was about money for lobbying of one of their friends to keep them in Parliament. That seems to me dreadfully wrong. Let's be very clear. He had, first of all, an assessment and a hearing from the Commissioner. He had an appeal at the committee and then a final appeal, effectively, at the Commons. And fundamentally, the very final appeal of all of these things is a suspension can trigger a by-election and the people decide. And if he believed he was innocent and could convince the people, he could have re-stood. But instead what happened is people were trying to fiddle the system. And that's what the public felt. It was fiddling the system halfway through. And that was totally wrong. Now, the government have backtracked. But I think that some of this will start to stick. And it's not the first time. We, of course, have Matt Hancock's pub landlord gets £1 million contracts for something that he'd never done before until COVID hit. We have, billions of pounds spent on Dodo Harding's track and trace, and it doesn't work properly for the first few months. All of these kinds of disasters on their own are explainable, but once they start to build up, the public start to question, are they competent? Is this government competent? And is this government clean? And that was, of course, the same thing that happened in that 92 to 97 period. And it's not only a problem for the Conservatives, it's a problem for all of us MPs, because we all go and get the backlash, as we've heard that Peter has.
Yeah, I mean, Lloyd, the point is this, isn't it? That, the Conservatives have been in power for a long time, and you can draw an analogy with 92 and perhaps where we are now. But the other point is this. The Labour Party was very ably led through the last half of that Parliament by a young Tony Blair, and the charges that somehow New Labour was different, was fresh, and that the Tories were tired and looking after their own self-interest stuck. Does Keir Starmer have the leadership abilities to reach out to the British public and promise them a new, cleaner kind of politics?
Well, the differences between me and Keir are no secret. But let's be very clear. Keir has a background of that lawyer, of that prosecutor. I think we can be very clear. Keir would, of course, be someone that is a totally different kind of persona than the kind of matey, dodgy, dealy persona that you have with Boris Johnson. And I think that the public will see that very starkly.
One slight problem, I would suggest, Lloyd, for the Labour Party is that on this very day, Claudia Webb, a Labour Member of Parliament for Leicester, has, of course, received a suspended sentence. So it doesn't look so good for either party, really, does it?
No, but the difference is the action that the party has done. Now, Claudia does have still an appeal route, so I would never prejudge what the appeal judges are going to say, but if we suspect they uphold there will be a by-election. The Labour Party suspended the whip from her immediately that this became available. They have today expelled her from the party, pending, of course, a High Court judgment. The Labour Party have not gone round scuttling around, changing the rules to make what she's accused of doing legal. But that's what the Conservative Party seem to have done. That's the difference. You all get rotten apples, you all get people that do the wrong things sometimes in your own team. It's how you deal with it that matters.
Peter Bone, Lloyd Russell-Moyle's made it very clear. When Labour find misdoings, they act immediately. They've expelled Claudia Webb from the Labour Party. But the charge he's making against your party is you try to cover up and change the rules to protect one of your own.
Yeah, I mean, that's nonsense. That's not what happened, because they tried to change. Well, I think the government, quite rightly, thinks that the standards procedure is flawed as there's no appeal system. As Lloyd has just said, the Labour MP has appealed and has the right to. Owen Paterson did not have that right, so I think there was concern about that.
But the point Lloyd's making, and making quite clearly, is Labour have found one of their members of Parliament to have acted in a way that's not acceptable and have expelled her from the party, the Conservative Party tried to gather their arms around one of their own to protect him.
That interpretation, I think, is wrong. What they actually voted for was a review of the system and Mr. Patterson's case to be suspended until that review has taken place. The idea that somehow the Conservatives tried to clear Owen Patterson was wrong. But the perception is there, and that's clearly a problem for the Conservative Party. I'm pleased the Prime Minister acted promptly, and when a government does something wrong, it's to their credit if they immediately correct it, and that's what's happened.
Well, this government does correct quite often, Peter, doesn't it?
Well, you might be suggesting they're wrong quite often.
It's known for U-turns, isn't it? Lloyd Russell-Moyle, looking ahead from here, I mean, it's in the interest of all of us that care about a functioning democracy for the public to believe in the honesty and the integrity of our political system. It's vital that that should be the case. The Labour Party said they would boycott the new proposals the government put forward yesterday. Would you like to see the Standards Committee carrying on exactly as it is, or is there an argument for amending it, reforming it and improving it?
Now, the Standards Committee's role is twofold: to look at cases and to, in each Parliament, conduct a whole-scale review of how standards work. That is what it's doing at the moment. That committee is cross-party, and that committee is currently engaging in that inquiry. So it's not true to say that anyone thinks that things should just continue on. It's an iterative process that continually needs improvement. What you don't need to do is create a committee where you shove it with all your mates. There are no independent people. The Standards Committee is half independent at the moment, and basically you're marking your own homework. That doesn't look good. Nobody really appreciates that, and nobody actually thinks that's a credible way to restore trust in members of Parliament.
OK, and Peter Bone, finally, just a quick personal thought about Owen Patterson. I know he's a friend of yours, been through a terrible personal time. How's he going to deal with all of this?
Well, he's put out a very dignified statement of why he's resigned. I mean, he and his family have gone through the most awful events that we could possibly consider. And I think some people are trying to kick him when he's down is very unfortunate. I think there should be compassion shown here. He's resigned, he's done the right thing, and I should think he should be left to carry on his life now.
Peter Bone, Lloyd Russell-Moyle, thank you very much.